Welcome to AARP New Jersey Fraud Facebook Friday. April is Fraud Month from AARP, and we are providing you with a special edition of this series. I'm Val Gallagher, an AARP New Jersey volunteer, and your host for today's conversation. Did you know real estate has become one of the largest targets for fraud in the United States, particularly involving seniors who often have significant home equity? Americans lost $16.6 billion to scams and cybercrime in 2024. That's a 33% increase from the prior year, and over 147,000 fraud complaints were filed by seniors, the highest of any age group. 41% of those cases involve forged wire instructions sent during the closing process. Today, Lou Forrester from National Title Agency joins us to share information on real estate wire fraud and how we can protect ourselves and our loved ones. National Title Agency is a New Jersey title agency located in Marlton, New Jersey, that services the title insurance and deed needs of home buyers. Lou, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start with one of the most important questions. Why do fraudsters target folks 55 and older when it comes to real estate fraud?
Well, thank you for having me here today, Val. Very good question. Let's take a look at the demographics of the seniors from 50 on up. It's the largest segment of our population. Taking that into account, the seniors have the most retirement savings, vulnerable, significant amount of equity in their primary homes, their investment properties, commercial properties, and secondary homes. And at this time of their life, they're looking at downsizing. The fraudsters are keying in on this demographic group because the money that is available in those areas are significant compared to the younger generation who have bought homes in the last 5-10 years, where they're only looking maybe at tens of thousands of dollars. This demographic group, or my demographic group, I'll speak for myself, is trusting in nature, more trusting in nature than the younger generation, being more skeptical and suspicious. In addition to that, there's a lower familiarity with fraud or digital fraud or spoofing, email diversion. And most of our conversations are done by email that is unsecured, not through a portal. All right. And this all tends to play into this demographic and being targeted on. And as you mentioned earlier, it's the largest growing financial crime in the industry is targeted toward the senior citizens because of this.
Great, Lou. I actually, see a lot of times, and we've had these conversations, about older adults and, information that's out there for public records, and people can easily find out the age of a homeowner, which is why I, try to advise people to kind of scrub their names off of all of those lists that are out there as much as possible to help mitigate that. It's very interesting information. So, Lou, for people who might not know, what exactly is wire fraud and how does it normally occur?
Well, wire fraud in its simplest forms. Criminals intercept email transactions involving real estate. And how they do this, they key in, their software programs key in on special words, trigger words, we'll call real estate, closing, mortgage, and the list goes on and on and on. They impersonate the communications of somebody in authority in that transaction. It could be a licensed real estate agent, it could be an attorney, title company, it could be the loan officers involved, familiarity with everybody, the authority figures involved in your real estate transaction. So they impersonate this during the course of the real estate transaction. Simply, they redirect the funds at an opportune time by monitoring the entire transaction from start to finish. And most money is transferred at the very end at closing. That's where it's most vulnerable, okay? Fake wiring instructions, we can get into this in a little bit. fake wiring instructions, spoofed email addresses, and impersonating, actually, as I mentioned before, the real estate professionals involved. And as I mentioned, they'll monitor it from the very beginning. They know when the closing date is. They see all the authoritative figures that are involved in the transaction, and provides them enough time to lift logos, lift emails, and superimpose them with a very insignificant dot or symbol in the transaction, and pose themselves as their realtor. And at the very, very last minute, usually a sense of urgency, they're directing the buyer or seller, we're changing the email address, we're changing the wiring instructions, excuse me. Instead of this, which was given to you weeks ago, we need to send it to this address now. Now, more and more agents and title companies are more in tune to this now. They tell the buyers and sellers up front, we will not ask you to change anything. So again, the most vulnerable, they see the logos, they're familiar with, they'll send the wire out, it's misdirected, it goes into the fraudster's account, and immediately it's gone.
Thanks so much, Lou. What are some of the psychological techniques we can look out for when fraudsters commit real estate wire fraud?
Well, I touched on one of them. It was a sense of urgency. And they create this urgent message. And again, this is all done by email. This is not done by phone. Contacting you at the last minute, it's very urgent. Instead of sending a cashier's check, you need to send a wire to this address. And remember, this email has already been spoofed. It may look like the real estate professional who they've entrusted all along in this transaction is now directing them to send this money to a different email, different wire bank. What we see more and more today, and it just happened in our firm last week, the buyer calls here, talks to the funding agent. She says, why am I now sending my $175,000 to a different bank? It was spoofed, attempted fraud. And again, this sense of urgency, they create this urgency by saying, if you don't do it, it could delay your closing. You may not. Most of this happens on a Friday. Most of it happens on long weekends. And very simply, if it happens on a Friday, there's Saturday and Sunday, then the buyer, the title company, everyone involved in the transaction, you can't contact the bank or any of the departments because they're closed. That provides the fraudsters enough time to take the money and not have it pulled back. Most importantly, they impersonate themselves as a person of authority, their attorney, their real estate agent, the title company involved. It's knowing who you're doing business with and vetting those individuals and stakeholders in your transaction in the very beginning and verifying all the contact numbers.
Wow. Have you ever seen times where they try to create, like don't tell anybody, like secrecy, or trying to isolate the older adult, by like, don't tell your daughter, don't tell your spouse, don't tell this person, don't tell that person?
Isolationism? Sure. They've gotten away from that, but they do say, look, don't contact anyone. Time is of the essence. You need to do this immediately. We'll talk about it afterwards. But that sense of urgency that they're imposing on the buyer or seller, that sense of urgency is put in such a way that if they don't do it immediately, take away the isolation, they don't do it immediately, the transaction might not go, or the transaction might be delayed for another day.
Okay. I mean, this information will certainly help protect, our viewers and their loved ones. And I hope people, do share this far and wide. Lou, how can folks protect themselves if they've become a victim of these types of scams?
Well, I hinted on that earlier. So in the outset, you want to contract to a licensed real estate professional, real estate agent. You want to vet them, see what their protocols are for wire fraud, wiring, handling of money. Same with your attorney. You know, we look at attorneys just like title companies and real estate agents that you're the go-to. Same way with attorneys. If you have an attorney, same questions. Vet your attorney. What's your phone number? Verify these phone numbers. Verify all this information up front at point of contact when you're speaking to them. Remember, what everyone needs to understand is that everyone in today's time, because of email, everyone wants to have a conversation of email. It's susceptible to anybody out in the marketplace. Nobody wants to pick up the phone and discuss the situation. At the time of the beginning of your closing, my suggestion is to vet all the individuals that you're doing business with, along not just their email addresses, but their phone numbers, and verify these phone numbers from a third source. All right. That's the best way, starting from the beginning. Again, you want to be conscious of the fact that if there's any changes whatsoever, and they're last minute changes, question them. Don't question them with an email. Question them with a verified source of the phone number and who you're speaking with. And after your closing, verify your bank accounts where the money came from. All right. Keep all your closing documents. And in addition to that, monitor your property records. Again, property records, Val, I think you hit on this earlier on in our conversation about deed transfers and so forth. The counties now have set up a program where you can monitor any transaction that's going on with your property that may hit through a website, a portal, strictly targeting your property. So if somebody attempts to fraudulently convey your property, it will come up immediately. But these ongoing, it's the environment, and it's the environment that we live in today.
Yeah. Technology has been, both a blessing and a curse at times, unfortunately.
Good and bad.
Correct. Lou, where can folks report if they've become a victim of scams?
The first thing you want to do is you want to contact your bank immediately. In some cases, they can put a hold on your account. And I'll give you a real life experience in a minute. Number two, contact the title company that was involved in your transaction. In most cases, their bank that was wiring out of, their bank can pull that wire back. And again, this is a short period of time that all this can be accomplished. So first and foremost, contact your bank, contact the fraud department, contact the title company so they can contact their bank and fraud department. Then you want to contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, local office. And last but not least, if done quickly and done very fast, funds can be recovered and pulled back or pulled out of the account and suspended until they determine if it is fraud.
Okay. Lou, can you share your closing thoughts for our viewers?
Be suspicious go with your gut. You vetted all the professionals in the beginning. You know their addresses, you know their phone numbers, you know their email addresses, you know their personalities because you've done business with them for quite some time, usually 30, 40 days. If there is a condition that is changed at the last minute, contact that individual by phone, not email. If you're going to use email, use a secured portal. Most cases today, nobody has a secured portal unless you're involved in our industry. All right. And again, being seniors, we're targeting seniors because that's where the criminals are targeting. Mm-hmm. They're not breaking into seniors' homes. They're breaking into their emails, identity theft, and the list goes on. Be careful what you're communicating with via email because, again, it's out there for anybody to pull.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Lou. I really appreciate all this information. If you're concerned you've been scammed, you can reach out to a trained volunteer at the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline at 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3660. If you'd like more information and resources on fraud and scams from AARP New Jersey, please visit aarp.org/NJ Fraud Watch. Again, that's aarp.org/NJ Fraud Watch. If you're interested in learning more about free fun events, special offers, and the latest news from AARP, text the word yes, the number 2, email to 50757 to receive a one-time text message from AARP with a link to sign up for emails and learn about what AARP has to offer. Message and data rates, of course, may apply. We hope you learned something new today about how you can stay safe from fraud and scams. Please share what you've learned with your family and friends, as it could significantly help them. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Val.